everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina. I'm a life transformation coach, and today I wanted to just quickly answer a question that got sent in about using what's called anchor thoughts or mental anchoring as a tool for reducing anxiety. And I thought it would be a great topic to cover today because this is actually a technique that I find extremely beneficial and very powerful. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I personally suffered from anxiety for much of my life, and this is one of the strategies that actually helped me out a lot. So let's start by talking about really what the concept is, because I've found that many people just have not heard of it before. So a great analogy for a mental anchor is a bookmark. It's a bookmark to an emotional place that we found helpful or secure at another time. So if we think about what an anchor is for a ship, it's designed to keep the ship from floating away. And we know when we suffer from anxiety, once we start to worry, once we have that trigger and we start to feel anxious, we start to kind of mentally float away. We kind of start to spiral and we can feel like we're really going down the rabbit hole. So what a mental anchor is designed to do is to pull us right back to that safe emotional space. This is a technique that's commonly used in something called Neurolinguistic Programming, or NLP, and we're kind of repurposing it for this specific use of anxiety reduction. So what the actual anchor thought is, or the mental anchor, is a pre-designed response that we're going to think about ahead of time and calculate. It's kind of like an equation that we're going to say when we experience this emotion, which for us is going to be anxiety, we are going to design to feel this. And we're going to do that through coming up with a thought or a mantra or a specific mental place that we can come back to whenever we are experiencing that particular trigger. So if we think about it, our life is really filled with anchors. These are the experiences or the artifacts that really can pull us back to a specific emotion or a specific moment in time. So it could be a song that we hear that automatically makes us think of someone in particular, or makes us be kind of mentally immersed in a specific place that that song reminds us of, or we smell something that reminds us of something specific, or we, hear something or see a photograph that immediately anchors us back to a specific bookmark. So what we're doing in this technique is simply using this to our advantage when we know we can create an association that's going to bookmark a more positive feeling. It's going to help us pull away from that anxiety. So our goal here really isn't to cure anxiety. It's not going to cure our anxiety, but what it will do is interrupt it. It's going to pull us back to that safer space so we can kind of collect ourselves and calm ourselves down so that we don't continue to spiral out of control and to just kind of get lost in all that negative thinking and catastrophizing. So we can use this technique in two ways. We can use it when we know ahead of time that we are going to be doing something that makes us feel fearful or anxious. So for example, if we're afraid of public speaking and we know we're going to have to give a speech, we can use anchor thoughts to prepare for this situation. Or we can use this technique in a much more general sense when we are not prepared for a situation. So when we are just going about our daily life and something triggers us and we start to feel anxiety. So let's start by talking about what we can do, how we can use this technique when we do know ahead of time that we're going to be in a situation that is going to make us feel anxious. So there's really 3 steps to this process. The first step is to figure out what the actual trigger is. So a lot of times we have kind of a general sense of anxiety about a situation, but we have to really pinpoint what exactly about it is making us feel fearful and anxious. So that's the first step. The second step is going to be really identifying specifically again how that makes us feel. So we know it makes us feel anxious, but what else comes up? Does it make us feel unworthy? Does it make us feel inferior? What else is coming up for us? So we want to mentally think about all the negative emotions that are associated with this situation to come. And the third step of the process is simply to figure out what would make us feel better. What words would make us feel better? What thoughts would make us feel better? What would make us feel empowered? So again, step 1 is figuring out the trigger. Step 2 is identifying specifically how that trigger makes us feel. And step 3 is simply figuring out what would make us feel better. What would relieve the anxiety? So let me give you a specific example that kind of outlines this process. So I have a client who is a very beautiful woman who happens to have many, many tattoos and piercings. This is something that she is very happy about, it's part of who she is, and it's something that normally she's very, very confident about. However, whenever she travels back home on the holidays, her family gives her a lot of grief about it, and she says that it instantly makes her kind of go back to her childhood. She starts to feel ashamed of her choices, she starts to question her decisions, and she starts to feel really, really bad about herself. And because of this, for a long time, she was actually avoiding these interactions. She stopped going home for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and she realized it's really because she doesn't want to feel these negative emotions, and it was causing her a great deal of anxiety. So after doing this for about a year, she realized that she really missed her family and she wanted to see them again, and knew that she needed some kind of coping strategies to help her be able to handle her anxiety when she had these interactions. So we figured out that anchor thoughts would probably be a great technique for her to try. So we already knew what the trigger was. The trigger was her family making negative comments about her appearance. The second step for her was, understanding that how her family was responding was making her feel shame and embarrassment about her appearance, making her question her decisions, and kind of making her feel belittled and small. And so the third part of the process was simply to figure out what would make her feel better. What thoughts did she need to hear? What did she need to tell herself? And she came up with a few statements that she felt helped her feel better. The first, I think, was, "I'm proud of how I look. It doesn't matter what other people think of me. I can still be a good person and have tattoos." So she started to prepare these statements in her mind, and the next interaction she had with them, yes, the situation came up where they did make the negative comments as expected, but she was ready for it this time, and she was able to let them talk, and then she was internally giving herself the dialogue, "I am beautiful, I made this decision, I am confident, I want to look like this, it's okay if other people don't approve of me, and my family still loves me even though they don't love my tattoos." These are the types of statements and the anchor thoughts that she had prepared that actually did calm her in that moment, and she was able to listen to the comments, just have a small reaction as opposed to a huge reaction, and then move along with the conversation. And usually it would end in something that was really, really dramatic, but since she was prepared for the situation and didn't feel the amount of anxiety, she was able to get through it. Now, of course, I'm not saying that this excuses the behavior of the family members and that this is something that should be brushed aside, but it did allow her to get through this moment, and with time, she hopes to be able to have a heart-to-heart with them and really address the actual issue. But until she gets to that point, she can use these anchor thoughts. So this is a technique that we can use as well. But let's say we do not know ahead of time we are going to be walking into a situation that makes us anxious. What can we do then? So when we're in these situations, we need to really make these anchor thoughts a lot more general, and they do need to be prepared still ahead of time. So we kind of go through the same process. So we are going to identify what the triggers are for us, and then we are going to identify how they make us feel, and then we're going to design some very general statements that could make us feel better in pretty much any situation. So it could be, "I am safe, I am secure, I am strong, I will get through this, this is temporary." whatever you need to hear, and you can use some introspection to figure out what really is the most comforting for you, but it's something that you want to be able to believe and something that you know would be calming if you could believe it. So that's the first step. Now the second step is to make it more powerful by combining it with something sensory. So what do I mean by that? So by the sensory aspect, I mean we're going to combine it and make it more powerful by adding stimulation that is visual, auditory, something that has to do with smell or taste or touch, combining that thought with some kind of sensory response just helps us to condition and to set this in a lot more powerfully and to help us pull back into that bookmark that we are wanting to be in a lot faster. It helps us really anchor in. So by visual, it could be something like a charm that we wear around our neck. By auditory, it could be a mantra that we say aloud to ourselves, or a song that we could hear, something that, could make us feel better. By taste, it could be, like a mint. By smell, it could be, a little oil that we pull out that smells like oranges or something like that. And by touch, this is one that's very, very popular. We can make a fist, we can tap ourselves, we can kind of put pressure between our thumb and our first finger, something like that. So we want to think of a sensory response or something sensory that we can combine with this, because this is going to help us really set it in stone and condition us a lot more quickly and a lot more solidly. And from there we can really start to design that mental anchor. So for example, if we decided that our anchor thought is going to be, I am safe and secure and strong, and our sensory stimulation is going to be that we are going to smell essential oil in peppermint, let's say. So what we can do ahead of time is to have many times to practice this, where we sit when we are in a mood that is relaxed and calm. We don't want to do this as we condition ourselves when we are already feeling anxious. So in moments that we feel safe and secure, and we really believe that statement because it's true at that time, we want to close our eyes and repeat those phrases to ourselves over and over and over. And we have decided in this case that we're also going to smell that peppermint. So we're going to get out our essential oil and we're going to smell that peppermint as we, repeat to ourselves that we are safe, secure, and strong. And we're going to do this time and time again until we really feel that it is conditioned, that it really does relax us. And then we want to kind of put it to the test. So when we get into a situation where we do feel triggered, when we have that anxiety, we can kind of pull ourselves away. We can go in a safe spot. We can sit down. We can smell that peppermint. And we can really repeat that mantra to ourselves and really cling to that anchor thought and see if it is something that is effective for us. And if not, it could be that this is not the anchor thought that is going to work for us, or maybe it's something that we haven't conditioned enough. But we do want to kind of test it out before we're in a very, very dramatic situation. And we can know that the anchor is effective because it's going to interrupt the negative thoughts. It's going to kind of zap us back into that safe space. We're going to be able to successfully have a little bit of relief from the anxiety and from the negative thinking. And a lot of times that's all we need. We just need that interruption. We need it to stop so we can stop that spiraling from happening. And again, this is not an anxiety cure. What this is giving ourselves a moment to be free from this negative thoughts so we can allow ourselves to calm down and maybe some of the other physical symptoms that we might be feeling to lessen a little bit. And that can give us enough relief to be able to collect our thoughts and to be able to start to deal with the the anxiety itself, because we know when we are in that anxious spiral, it can go downhill very, very quickly. So if we have this plan, if we have this pre-designed anchor that we can really help ourselves to experience whenever we are triggered, it's just going to give us those precious moments that we need to interrupt the thoughts and calm down. So again, this is something that I have found very, very effective. I use many different methods for myself. I love to smell oranges. I find that very helpful. I love to think of mental imagery for me, and for me, I like to think of a forest, and I have, of course, my own pre-designed anchor thoughts and statements that I say to myself. So this is really a process of really figuring out what is going to work for you and finding your own emotional safe place, your own really mental bookmark that you can come to whenever you need to come to it. And you can stay in that mental place as long as you need. Don't feel like it's something that you have to rush through. If it's something that's providing you with comfort and allowing you to actually relax, take as much time as you need with that anchor until you're ready to move forward. So I would love to hear if this is something that you have heard of before, this technique, and if not, if it's something that you feel that you might want to try, and also what you think might be an effective mental anchor for you. So definitely let me know that in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe for more, and I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Have an absolutely amazing day.